Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's meeting of full council. Welcome also to those members of the press and public who are joining us via the live stream. Before we begin, please can I take this opportunity to remind member and officer colleagues to turn mobiles and computers to silent and ensure that when using the microphones, the red light is on and then turned off when you're finished speaking. Agenda item 1. Can I ask member services to report any apologies for absence, please?
We've had apologies from councillors Benny, Booth, Connor, Mrs Davis, Gill and Purser.
Thank you. Item 2, previous minutes. The next item on the agenda is to request approval of the minutes of the meeting held on the 30th of September 2024. These can be viewed at page 3 to 12 of the agenda pack. I would like to move approval of the minutes. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Bowden, thank you. Thank you. Members, if you have any comments, then please raise your hand. No hands have been raised, therefore the minutes are approved. Item 3, civic engagements update. For information, you'll find at pages 13 to 14 of the agenda pack a list of the civic engagements the Vice Chairman and I have attended in the weeks preceding full council. Item 4. Unfortunately, I'll begin my announcements today with the sad news of the recent passing of former councillor Avis Gilliatt. Avis was a member of Fenland District Council from May 1999 to May 2007 as a Labour councillor for Wisbech North, which became Waterleys. She served on the Economic Regeneration Committee, Housing Committee, Overview and Scrutiny Panel and Standards Committee. Avis was also Mayor of Wisbech from 1999 to 2000. I would like to offer the council sincere condolences to Avis's family and friends and ask that you join me in a minute's silence to commemorate her life. If you are able, please stand. Thank you very much. On a lighter note, I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who attended my carol service on the 6th of December. It was an enjoyable event in the historic St Peter and St Paul's Church in Wisbech, where a wonderful festive atmosphere was created to mark the start of the season. I'd like to thank member services for their assistance in organising the event, as well as the Reverend Paul Kite, the Clarkson Singers, James Mooney Dutton, and the Fenland Poet Laureate Hannah Teasdale. And another bit lighter announcement to make. It'd be very remiss of me if I didn't take this opportunity to wish a very happy birthday to Councillor Christie, who is celebrating a noteworthy birthday, so I hope you have a good one. Item 5, declarations of interest. Agenda item 5 is to receive any declarations of interest under the local code of conduct or any interest under the code of conduct on planning matters in respect of any items to be discussed at this meeting. If you have anything to declare, please can you raise your hand? Councillor Senate-Clough.
Thank you, Chair. Just to notify you that I have been lobbied extensively on agenda item 8, but I shall remain open-minded.
Thank you. Are there any other declarations of interest? No. Thank you. Agenda item 6 is to receive questions from and provide answers to councillors in relation to matters which, in the opinion of the chairman, accord with the provisions of Procedure Rules 8.4 and 8.6. There have been no written questions submitted in accordance with Rule 8.6, and we will therefore proceed straight to questions under Rule 8.4. Councillor John Clark, you may now ask questions of the leader within the allotted time limit of 20 minutes, please.
I would like to start by congratulating Whittlesea on their wonderful tribute to Remembrance Day in the Whittlesea Garden of Rest. The crocheted knitting figures represented of many of the forces that gave so much for us in the 2 world wars. You must be very proud of your residents who put such an impressive show. After finding a parking space, we walked along the main street and did some shopping and had something to eat and drink, and we enjoyed our visit to Whittlesea. But speaking to residents while we were having our meal, parking seems to have been taken up by Whittlesea. Parking seems to be taken up by parking in Whittlesea and travelling through to Peterborough to work, etc., avoiding parking charges in Peterborough. Are you aware of this problem? And if so, what are you doing to address it? And also, could you give an update on the Saxon Pit recycling, creating dust, noise, smell, and did the council go ahead to purchase the monitoring equipment, please?
Thank you, Chairman, through you. I'm pleased that Councillor Clark enjoyed his visit to Whittlesea, and the knitted works which have been found in the Garden of Rest and elsewhere within Whittlesea are the work of volunteers, nothing to do with the town council, certainly nothing to do with the district council, but down to individuals who put an awful lot of work in for many, many months before Remembrance Day. And I'm pleased to hear that Councillor Clark agrees that it has a massive impact on anyone who comes to Whittlesea and sees it for themselves. I'm pleased also that Councillor Clark had a little walk around Whittlesea as well. And yes, Councillor Clark's entirely correct. There are parking issues. I think we've all got parking issues, and we always have had parking issues. And yes, there is an element, and there has been for many, many years, of individuals who park at Whittlesea and in our car parks in Whittlesea, I have to say, and then they get the bus into Peterborough for a day's work and then get the bus back in the evening. It's nothing new. And it's really difficult to do much about it, because if we start bringing restrictions in, then we're going potentially to harm individuals who are working in the town centre, for example. So we're looking very much at what the options are open to us, but we really want to do this as part of a comprehensive parking review, which will take place eventually, both on street and off street. Now, we've been stymied in this, to be quite honest, by the County Council for several years now, and I'm hoping that things will move forward after the elections. But until we can have that, I'm loath to start on a piecemeal basis just looking at the off-street car parking issues, when really we need to do this holistically and look at both off-street and on-street parking and how we can move things forward within Whittlesea. On the subject of Saxon Pit, I don't want to go into an enormous amount of detail about everything which is done. I've only got 20 minutes. But I can confirm that we did purchase some additional monitoring equipment. That monitoring equipment isn't at Saxon Pit. It's some distance away by the Park Lane School. And it is operating, and the information is being published as to what it is showing. And it's really valuable to us to have that in conjunction with knowledge of what the wind direction is at any particular time, because it can assist us significantly in trying to identify when people report a problem with odour allegedly from the pit, or even a problem with dust, that we can then look at the objective data and see what that says, and if that does confirm what it is that people suspect is happening. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
We know that there's a white paper on local government reorganisation today, and we have many tiers of councils in Fenland: parish, towns, police, police authority, fire authority, Cambridgeshire County Council, mayoral office. Many are expected to increase their share of the council tax, meaning a possible big increase when the council tax hits the floor of Fenland council tax residents. A past leader of this council, Mr. Alan Melton, made the following comments on Look East on the television, and his comments were: total salaries paid to 10 chief executives in Cambridgeshire is £1,579,156. This does not include total costs of car allowance, employers' contribution, national insurance contribution, private health. Brings the gross salaries to well over 2 million. Each chief executive has a support staff of secretaries, advisors and runners. The chief executive is head of paid service, including finance directors, chief planners, leisure directors, service directors with support staff. There are too many councillors and too many support staff. Michael Heseltine, a former housing secretary, once said, "There are many councillors and officials sending around papers and achieving very little." I would suspect that with the plethora of directives and policies and standards now sent by email is the justification for all these officers. Multi-layered local government in Cambridgeshire and beyond has prompted the government to look into local government structures, efficiency and value for money and service delivery. So my question is, do you support local government reorganisation?
Councillor Bowden.
Thank you very much indeed. Nothing is perfect in this world, and anyone who says anything is perfect probably is looking with rose-tinted glasses. So yes, I would very much welcome local government reorganisation, not necessarily though what's being proposed by the government at the moment. The numbers which you quoted, through you, Chair, the numbers quoted from ex-Councillor Melton are probably entirely correct. I'm not going to dispute those. Certainly I don't dispute the principle of them. But there is an issue here, and that is democracy actually comes with a price. You don't get democracy for free. You need a structure to be able to support democracy. And it's a matter of what level of democracy do we have. Now, we could save, I'm just going to use Cambridgeshire as an example, we could save a significant amount of money in a whole host of different ways, some of which Councillor Clark mentioned. We could save a whole host of money by our local council just being run from Cambridge. But do we really want, and do you think our residents really want, decisions made about our bin services, about our grass being cut, the electoral services, all the things that are done currently by Fenland District Council? Do we really want that controlled from Cambridge? When does local government stop being local? And that's a very legitimate debate to have. If we were to take that to an extreme, of course, local government would be best, and it looks as though government is trying to do this to some extent, just have it all controlled from the centre. And the more you control from the centre, the less you will have to worry about all of the costs that Councillor Clark was talking about. But that removes the locality, it removes the localism from local government. And we saw one significant step in the removal of local government back in the 1972 Local Government Act, which came into force on the 1st of April 1974, where Fenland was created. And we still have people, even in this very chamber, we still have individuals who hark back to the greater amount of democratic accountability which there was with smaller local authority bodies than we've got now. But we have to move forwards, and we have to recognise cost efficiencies. And it's much too early in the process to start talking about specifics here, but there's a trade-off to be had. Do we want to save every single penny by making local government more remote, or do we want to keep a considerable amount of control in the hands of local people? It's a legitimate debate to have, and I'm sure it's a debate which we're going to have to some significant extent in the future. And Councillor Clark, if I may through you, Chair, if I fail to answer your question, because I was so interested in you asked, am I in favour of local government reform? Always, but not necessarily in the way the government's doing it.
Thank you, Councillor Bowden. Councillor Clark, have you got any more questions? Thank you very much. Agenda item 7 is to receive reports from and ask questions of Cabinet members with portfolio holder responsibilities in accordance with procedural rules 8.1 and 8.2 on pages 11 to 62 of your pack. So in accordance with procedural rule 8.1, members will find the portfolio holders briefing reports at those pages as I just mentioned. Procedural rule 8.2 permits questions to Cabinet members about any matter which falls within their portfolio responsibilities, and members are reminded that there is a total time allocation of 1 hour for this item. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Gerstner.
Thank you. Question for the leader, please. Been extensively lobbied and communicated with about the Ralph Butcher Causeway. A letter has been circulated by Alex Beckett, the Chair of Highways and Transport at Cambridgeshire County Council, to say that there was a contractual dispute between Cambridgeshire County Council and the contractor. The question is, will this hold up even more the non-information or very little information that's coming through at the moment? And does this start to look a little bit like the guided busway affair that Cambridgeshire County Council had to put up many, many years ago between BAM and BAM Nuttall and Cambridgeshire County Council? So the first question, is there any update at all that you can release to the public, please?
Councillor Bowden, please.
Thank you, Chair. Did you say there's an hour available for this section? Good. It's been really remarkable how little public information has become available in the last 3 weeks about what's been happening in Whittlesey. Some of you who aren't in Whittlesey won't be aware of the sheer chaos that there has been for the best part of 6 months now, and particularly in the last few weeks, because of restrictions on the Ralph Butcher Causeway and the A605 going over King's Dyke. You made reference to Alex Beckett's letter. I was going to leave this and not make any comment about it until at least between Christmas and New Year, if not later, because at the moment, what I'm concentrating on, and I'll come to in a second, is how important it is that we get the current situation sorted out as best we can. But I was quite surprised to read that letter, which A, tried to bring party politics into the subject, which no one's interested in, everyone just wants to get the bridge sorted out, but B, made reference to something which I had understood we were not meant to make any reference to. But given that he is the chairman of the Transportation Committee at the Highways Committee at County Council, and he's made reference to this, I now feel able to make reference to it myself. After the current administration came into power at County Council, there was a catastrophic failure of the bridge supports. This was before any bridge had even been put on top of the supports, but the bridge supports failed catastrophically and unexpectedly. Now, action was taken at that time significantly to change the design of the bridge supports so that if the whole of Fenland were to be decimated, to be devastated by a comet hitting us, the one thing which would stay up would be those bridge supports. But that wasn't really what should have happened at that time. What should have happened at that time was a better questioning of why did that happen? Why did that catastrophic failure happen? And I could go into some detail on the technical side about the failure, but I'm not going to at this stage. And it's possible, and it's only possible, but it's possible that if that had been looked at by the County Council administration at that time thoroughly, they may have found there was an underlying problem which may be the same as the underlying problem that we've got now with the support for the embankment right next to those bridge supports. Now I say may because I don't know. No one actually knows. But just maybe, when all of this finally comes out, we finally find out what has caused the problems that we've got currently at the bridge, it may well be that there was a major missed opportunity back then in 2021 because there was a real warning sign there that perhaps ground conditions were such that it was inadvisable to continue the way we were. I say perhaps in all of that because, Chair, I honestly don't know what the position is on that. And as I say, no one does know. But what has happened is that given the issues which have been found, the cracks which have been found in the carriageway, which aren't explained, and which aren't immediately a safety matter, but could be, and so the County Council has acted quite correctly with an abundance of caution in blocking off one of the two carriageways and instituting temporary traffic lights. Given that that is the case, what happened is that the contractor, with whom there is a contractual dispute, which I'll come to in a second, the contractor has, and people in Whittlesea will have seen this happening, over the last couple of weeks, they've brought in a boring machine. They've bored a hole about 20 centimetres in diameter, 25 centimetres in diameter. They've bored 6 holes into the embankment. 4 on the carriageway or carriageway side going into Peterborough, 2 on the carriageway side going into Whittlesea. And they've bored those holes to a depth of 12 metres, which is very substantial depth, given so it must go into the underlying clay. And they've taken, in fact, 12 separate 1 metre samples from each of those 6 holes. So in total, they've now got 72 samples, which are now the subject of analysis. How long that analysis will take place, and how long will it take to get any answers, I don't know. And whether we'll even be told what those answers are in the short term, I also don't know. But given the horrendous lack of information that we've had over the last few weeks, I spoke to the Chief Executive of Cambridgeshire County Council to say that it wasn't acceptable for people in Whittlesea to be kept so much in the dark about what is going on. And he agreed that I should speak to the Director of Highways for the County Council, and I have a meeting tomorrow afternoon, a face-to-face meeting with him, to go through what the current situation is, what can be revealed to local people, and what the prognosis is, to the extent that he can say. The one thing I fear he cannot say, I must have reasonable expectations here, I don't think he'll be able to say how long all of this is going to carry on. That's just not a reasonable question for me to expect that he'll have an answer to at this time. But there are a whole host of other things, including the way in which the traffic lights are being operated at the moment, what's happening with the B1040, what alternatives there may be if it's necessary to have major works done on the bridge. Those are legitimate questions which people in Whittlesea have a right to get an answer to. But, Chairman, Councillor Gerstner is correct. The amount of official information which has been coming out from day one of this has been poor, and in the last 3 to 4 weeks, it's been virtually non-existent. And that's just not acceptable. People are at their wits' end, some individuals within Whittlesea, at the delays which they suffer. And to the extent that we can manage to change things to reduce those delays, we've really got to take action to do so, or rather, County Council needs to take action to do so. The one thing which cannot happen is, under current circumstances, there is no way to avoid delays. There will be delays. It's just important that we try to minimise those delays as much as we reasonably can. So we're not in a good position. When you think all of this started back in June, July, with the County Council announcing that they were going to close off one carriageway for just over a week with temporary traffic lights, and that was now 6 months ago. And the lack of official information coming forward has, in my opinion, been quite scandalous. So I'm trying, Chairman, as Councillor Gerstner recognises, I'm trying to get more information out so that it's going to be possible for people to know what is going on. The one bit of information I'd love to say is, when will this all finish? And I don't see myself being able to give that information after tomorrow's meeting. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bowden. Does anybody have any more? Councillor Gerstner again, and then Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Councillor Bowden. A very comprehensive reply under the conditions that you're under. So I think the public are a little bit more informed now, and we look forward to your meeting tomorrow with Cambridgeshire County Council and hopefully get some further replies. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on Mr. Gerson's question, but first of all, this is a question for Councillor French. Some 5-6 years ago, you announced that you would introduce civil parking enforcement, CPE, in Fenland, which I think it's fair to say you had the backing of the entire council. I don't think there is any councillor who does not receive complaints about inconsiderate parking. You made a good start, but it seems to have stalled. The combined authority came up with their £150,000 toward the scheme, which we must be in danger of losing if it's not drawn down. Fenland's share of 500,000 could easily have been met by considerable windfalls of the Horizon money and the 2-year unexpected grants towards our IDB payments. I now see we are now going to clutter up March Broad Street with 42 bollards to try and stop inconsiderate parking, which I think we both know is unlikely to work. The two questions are, have you given up trying to introduce CPE in Fenland? If not, when is it going to happen?
Councillor Mrs French, please.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Yes, we did start this in 2019. All went speedingly well until we had a change of administration at County Council. The original cost was £325,000 to introduce it. That meant that Fenland were going to have to pay for all the new line signs, etc. Over the years, that has gone up to just £1 million, which is not sustainable. I've argued repeatedly with County Council, it's not up to a district council to maintain lines. And we were also told that they wanted us to maintain them in perpetuity. Finally, we got that agreed that it's not our job, but for us to move forward, we do have to, because there's just over 1,000 lines and signs that are incorrect and cannot. Apart from the financial side, County Council officers at this time are putting unrealistic conditions in local service agreement. At this time, officers are looking at that, but certainly, no, we haven't given up. We'll find the money somewhere. That it's just a case of, it's not just the money, it's the conditions, which we don't want to burden this council forevermore on whatever goes on. Yes, unfortunately, with the parking in March, I think it's appalling. We did make arrangements several weeks ago through the MAT scheme that we're going to have to put 42 bollards in to stop people parking. There is enough car parking for taxis, there's enough parking for disabled people, but people just seem to want to abandon their vehicles. And it's not just in March, it's right across. But the quick answer, no, we've not given up. We won't give up. We'll keep pressing forward.
Thank you, Councillor French. Councillor Clark?
Yeah.
Councillor French?
Thank you. I think it will be after the election, Councillor Clark. We're at stalemate at the moment with the councillors there, with the Rainbow Alliance. They won't budge. So hopefully we'll have a change of administration who will actually start talking to us. But yes, this council is still pushing forward.
Thank you, Councillor French. Councillor Roy, please.
Thank you, Chair. A question to Councillor Laws. The new planning policy framework has been published, and just an indication of how long it will take for the new local plan to replace the old local plan, if you could give us some kind of indication, that'd be lovely. Thank you.
Councillor Laws, please.
Thank you. I'll try to. Obviously, this has only just been published, and I've had a meeting with officers this afternoon, and I've been reading through it. I think it's a little early to actually give a confident answer. But obviously we're very focused on bringing the emerging local plan forward. I won't go into any politics of this, but they've rather thrown a spanner in the works, to say the least. So we are probably revisiting a couple of things, and we're also in conversations with our bordering councils regarding policy as well. There's a couple of lines in that document that requires clarification. So I'm not trying to be evasive. I just don't feel I want to give an inaccurate answer. But obviously our focus is very much to drive a new local plan forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Laws. Councillor Clark.
The Gershoners and Councillor Bowden's reply. When I was a county councillor, I attended meetings on the Whittlesea Bridge with Ralph Butcher on several occasions. And at such time, Kia Construction were a preferred builder for this scheme. But they saw many difficulties with this scheme, and in conversations with the county council, they withdrew, and then it went with a cheaper operator or to deliver this, and this has been reported in one of the journals. So it may be worth asking at your meeting, why did they not go with Kia, or why didn't they take any notice of their expected problems that they could see?
Councillor Bowden, would you like to reply, please?
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to Councillor Clark for giving me the opportunity to complete the answer I was going to give to Councillor Gerstner. There is, as the Chairman of the Highways Committee at Cambridgeshire County Council has now revealed, there is a contractual dispute at the moment between the County Council and Jones Brothers. And the dispute at the moment, it may be expanded when we get more information about the embankment, but at the moment the dispute is about who was responsible for the catastrophic column slippage in July 2021, what caused it, and who pays for all the additional costs which were involved with it. Now, I don't know the answer, so what I'm saying now isn't an indication of the strength or weakness of any particular party's case, but it could be to do with ground conditions, it could be to do with the design, it could be to do with materials, or it could be to do with the build. And those are the four options I can see. There may be others, but those are the four options I can see. And each of those four will point in a different direction as to who will be responsible in terms of the additional costs for that failure back in July 2021. If it turns out that the same cause is also responsible for the embankment problems that we've got now, then the numbers involved in that dispute will be that many more times bigger than they are at the moment. But as I say, I'm not giving any opinion as to which of the parties may be responsible, because to be perfectly honest, that's a technical question with technical answers, and I don't have that expertise. I don't think it's going to be particularly constructive in my meeting tomorrow to start going into the past about who was responsible for what at what time. Partly because that's part of what this legal dispute is all about. Tomorrow, my concern is about what people, residents in Whittlesea, are facing on a daily basis, and how we can manage in the short term, at least in part, at least to ameliorate some of the problems that they're experiencing at the moment, and to give some answers about what may be happening in the medium term rather than the short term. So my time tomorrow, and I've got a limited amount of time with the director, my time will be spent on practical questions to try and get some practical answers about how we can manage to improve the position that people in Whittlesea are facing right at the moment, especially whilst the B1040 is closed. The questions which Councillor Clark raised, Chairman, are ones which will have to be answered eventually, but I'd be wasting the opportunity of trying to improve the day-to-day position of residents in Whittlesea if I were to delve into those tomorrow, rather than concentrating on the practical questions which need to be sorted out so that we can reduce the amount of inconvenience that people are suffering in Whittlesea. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bowden. Does anybody else have any questions they would like to ask? Councillor Gerstner.
Thank you. Question for leisure services, please. Some months ago, we were given an indication that the 3 leisure centres in Fenland there would be a presentation given to Cabinet at the end of July on the plans for the future of the leisure centres. We haven't heard anything. Can I ask if there is an update and when we could expect an update, please?
Councillor Miscandlin, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you very much for the forewarning of the question, Councillor Gerstner. I have spoken to the officers since we spoke earlier, and we don't envisage a meeting between the Cabinet and the projected programme until probably March next year. The reason being is the complexity of the reports that have come from the consultants, and also getting Freedom on board with what's going to happen, because they are the partners of it, and they have to agree with what's going on. Now, they may turn around and say, don't waste your time, we're not interested, go ahead with what we got. We don't know that yet. And in fact, on Wednesday this week, the officers have a meeting with Freedom to show them what the latest report is, but we don't envisage a report coming to Cabinet before March, April next year.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions they would like to ask? No, in that case, we'll move on to item number 8. This is a motion on notice from Councillor Roy, and which appears at pages 69 to 70 of your agenda pack. Councillor Roy, would you like to move your motion? You have 5 minutes to present the motion and say anything you wish about it. Your next opportunity to speak will be when you sum up. Thank you. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. Fenland is now a very large and diverse community, encompassed within our 4 market towns as well as the small villages that lie around. The population in the eastern region since 2011 has grown by 8.3%, and in Fenland around 7.6% from 2011 to 2021. That's 95,300 people up to over 102,500 in that time, and we are continually growing, and we've seen that by the houses that are being built. Fenland is now a very culturally diverse area with people from around the globe contributing to our economy. And yet we don't feel that we have an identity. People still refer to the 4 market towns. The people of Fenland need an identity to bring them together as Fenlanders, not just with the foods they have introduced us to us, that the fashion and the fabric of languages and customs that have been made available to the people who live in Fenland and work in Fenland. Now, to gain official acceptance, the flag needs to be added to the flag registry. This is held by the Flag Institute. James Bowman, who originally came up with the idea of the flag of the Fens and who did the design back in 2018, has had strong backing from individuals, businesses, and I had a letter from Mr. Steve Barclay, who also has supported this motion. The application for registration would, however, benefit hugely from further expressions of support from elected representatives in the area. It's considered that the registration of the flag would give our people an identity, people of all faiths and all religions being brought together under one identity. I would therefore like to put this to full council that we officially endorse and formally record our support for the flag of the Fens, as many councils have done in their districts, to give us an identity in this very fragmented world that we live in. Let's be proud to be called Fenlanders.
Thank you, Councillor Roy. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Summers. Thank you. You can reserve the right to speak at the end of the debate or at the time of seconding the motion. Do you wish to speak now, or do you wish to reserve the right?
I reserve, thank you.
Thank you. The item is now open for discussion, and members are reminded that they are each able to speak once. Councillor Laws.
Thank you, Chair. I didn't think you'd see me for a moment. Let me start by saying I don't actually hear of anyone in Whittlesea accepting this flag from the Whittlesea Town Council's point of view, but I'll go on from there. I can't support this. I consider this to be a poor copy and design of the rampant of Scotland and the royal banner of the Royal Arms of Scotland. I'd like to draw members' attention to the centre of this chamber. Now, there is a carpet that costs £10,000 and it has the Fenland registered, what I would call the registered insignia. And that was £10,000 in its time, and at the time VAT was 15%. I've got a long memory. Also, when I entered this Fenland Hall today, I noticed there was a flag flying. And again, it's the symbol that you see in front of you. And that was at 1:30 today. Now, I don't know why the flag was flying today, but maybe it's because of this motion. What I would like to say is that this particular flag has been knocked about for several years, and I will put it that way. It's been talked about on Facebook and various other places. I do not consider this represents Finland. As I say, it's a poor copy, a really poor copy of the Scottish flag. And if members have the time and the inclination to look at this, then I would suggest it goes out for consultation and it goes through the proper process of actually looking at a flag and adopting a flag. At the moment, I cannot see anything wrong with the Fenland emblem we've got now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Laws. Councillor Tierney, please, and then Councillor Mockett.
Well excited.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a few things to say about this. First of all, I want to address the text of the motion before I talk about the flag itself. Now, normally when a motion is presented to Council, I would expect to see a problem being raised, a bunch of things suggested to clarify the depth of the problem, and then a solution proposed. I don't think this motion really does that. It's a bit vague, if I'm honest. It seems to require me to go and do a bunch of research before I can even look at supporting it. The first paragraph says Finland is growing, the east of England is growing. Okay, we know that, that's fine. The second paragraph then says that we need an identity. Well, actually, I think Finland already has an identity. The Finland itself, as well as all the individual villages and towns, all have culture and identity already, hundreds of years of it, actually. And it's a little bit rude, I think, to suggest otherwise, which this motion does in several places. I think really it's for the people of Finland to decide if they need a flag to represent them, not one individual. Now, it may be that loads of work has been done, but this motion doesn't mention that at all. It does give me no background. The third paragraph then goes on to do what's called a logical fallacy. It's an appeal to authority. It says, these other people support it, the MP supports it, so we should support it. That's just nonsense. I mean, absolute respect to all those people and their views. They're all entitled to their views. But we have our own decision to make and our own views to hold. It doesn't matter what they think. We've got to look at the evidence presented to us. And then finally, it goes on to say again, we need to bring all these people together under one identity, as if suggesting a flag developed or thought about by one person will somehow solve every issue that cultures and religions and races have with one another. Now, I actually think Finland knocks along pretty well already. And people who come here do great work in the community and they integrate, and broadly, we have problems, but broadly it works quite well. Will a flag change that? Well, I've not seen evidence in the world that having a flag solves those issues. Certainly everywhere that's got a flag hasn't solved those issues. So I just think the motion itself is a failed motion. It just doesn't do what it is supposed to do, what I would expect to see in a motion. In regards to the flag itself, I don't like the design personally, but that doesn't matter. If everybody in Finland liked the design, then we could do it. But I would like to see evidence of a wide consultation. I'd like to see schools involved. I'd like to see some talk about what really Finland means so that we could introduce that into the flag. Not just somebody saying, you know, I think this should be it and I'm going to start selling it and I'd like it to be official. I don't support it at all. In fact, it seems a bit big-headed to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney. Councillor Mockett, please. My apologies, renaming people. Sorry, Councillor Gowler. Thank you, Councillor Gowler.
Thank you, Chair. I will echo some of the stuff Councillor Tierney said there. I mean, personally, I like the idea of a flag. I agree with some of the things in the motion about giving this an identity. What I have got a problem is with this flag and the way that it has been, there was a saying posed on this, is probably the wrong word. But I remember when it first came out on Facebook, and it's one person's idea, and he's designed a flag. Now, I don't personally know Mr. Bowman, but I do notice on this thing that I was kindly given earlier that he's got his name on it, his email address, see flag and fens. Now, assuming he's trying to flog these things to us. I agree with what Councillor Tierney said. I would prefer there to be some kind of consultation behind this. I would agree about schools being involved, maybe have some kind of competition, and the best ones being selected and then put out to a public vote. The other thing I picked up on the motion, this is very much concentrated on Fenland. Now, obviously, we are Fenland District Council, but I do note this gentleman comes from Ely, which would suggest that it represents more than Fenland itself. One would assume it represents the Fens. So I don't necessarily think we're the only authority that should make this decision. So yeah, I mean, in summary of this, I'm sorry, but I can't support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm very sorry for getting your name wrong. My apologies.
It's fine.
Can we have, please, Councillor Carney now, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Without sort of repeating what has already been said, a bit of background reading revealed to me from the Flag of the Fens Facebook group that Councillor Gars already said it's not just about Fenland itself. And I think it's very important for everybody to be absolutely clear. I think what the actual Flag of the Fens is trying to encompass is the actual geographical area of the Fen, which is from Barney in Lincolnshire all the way down to Suffolk, Lakenheath around there, obviously here, and into West Norfolk. And it also seems to be more of a trademark for businesses and individuals who wish to sort of stamp their product or service as being a product of the Fens. And reading what the British Flag Institute actually says about registration of flags is that any flag that is registered with them, that has been agreed by, usually by the general public, has to be one that can be used freely and without any repercussions. What I mean by that is that local authority flags, such as the Fenland District Council flag, which was awarded to this authority sometime in the 70s, I understand, but the fact is that a Fenland business couldn't, for example, use the FDC crest of arms as being a product of Fenland unless they asked for express permission from this council. Whereas, on the other hand, if a flag of the Fen was an officially registered flag, that person could use the flag of the Fens as a sort of thing paid with and defend. But as I say, it is important to remember, I think also, that should this council be minded to support it or not, whichever way it goes, if the flag of the Fen became officially registered, as far as I can see, there would be no obligation at all for this authority to use that flag simply because there is already a Fenland District Council flag. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Christie.
Councillor Tierney's comments, and I think it's the wrong place to bring it as a motion here. It's not right for us to be making that decision. Those key words have been used so far, consult and get people to decide what it wants. So, unfortunately, I think I will not be able to support this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Senate Clough, please.
Thank you, Chair. With all due respect to the person that's put forward the proposal, Councillor Roy, I'm from the Fens, okay, and I think also as chair of the Culture, Arts and Heritage Committee, it would be very remiss of me not to talk about the history of the Fens. The Fens has not always had a homogenous identity, and I think it's important to preserve the identity of the Fens as a group, a collection of islands, individual islands, which is reflected in their names with the suffixes E, either EY or EA as islands. And so I feel very much that to sort of just airbrush that history, and as I said, I'm from the Fens, and so with the idea of the flag of the Fens, kind of airbrushing out that individual spirit of the Fens is not acceptable to me. And so therefore I was going to abstain, but I cannot support it with my culture, arts and heritage hat on. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hoy, please.
Yeah, so I have to be honest, I don't really care particularly either way about this flag, and I wasn't going to speak at all on this today because I kind of have the flag, don't have the flag, I really wouldn't lose any sleep. From a personal level, I'm not particularly keen on how it looks. It looks more like a dragon than a tiger. I know it's kind of not breathing fire, but it is a bit strange. But I do like the idea of people having an identity, because the amount of times I've said to people I'm from Finland and they're like, where is that? Often say you're from Finland and you're like, no, it's nowhere near as cold. But no, so people don't know where we are. If you say, you know, live near Cambridge or Peterborough, people have heard of that, but they have never heard of Finland. So I do like the idea of making a thing about that. However, what I think I'm saddest about, and I do mean this in a good spirit, so please don't take it negatively, but we haven't had many motions at all in this council from the opposition, and it's disappointing that when there are so many issues in Finland at the moment, you know, what about dualling the A47? What about getting a rail line? What about this issue? You know, you've heard all these questions at the beginning about all these dire problems in Whittlesea. I mean, Councillor Bowden was a bit wrong saying people didn't know. Literally, that's all we talk about, Chris. So we do know about these Whittlesea problems, quite rightly. But where was the motion on that? Where's the motion on pressuring the county council to fix those Whittlesea issues? Where are all these really important issues that should be being brought up in this council chamber? And yet we're spending an hour talking about a flag.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to make a comment? No? Councillor Summers, would you like to exercise your right to speak?
Yeah, I'll just have a few little words. I'm no expert on flags. I can't dispute any of the facts that other people have brought forward today. What I see, though, is there is some logic behind what's being proposed. I can see there's some justification for it. I can see the sentiment behind it is a positive one of bringing communities together. And I think a lot of the responses today have focused very much on the negatives. A motion could fail but still have a more positive conversation, perhaps. I personally, I'm ambivalent about the design. I'm not from the Fens originally, but I like the idea. And to Councillor Hoy's point, yes, there's a lot of important issues going on. Not many of the ones we discuss are actually in our control, though, whereas supporting something or not supporting something that a member of the community is trying to achieve is within our control. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Roy, would you like to sum up, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank all the councillors that have commented, and every day is a learning day, especially to the councillors that put forward the proposal to have a consultation. I'm very pleased that that is obviously an element that I've overlooked. So I'd like to withdraw the motion and leave it at that, if I may.
I'll just take some advice, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Roy. I am told that we can withdraw the motion. Thank you,
Chair.
We move on to item 9, which is a motion submitted by Councillor Taylor, which appears at pages 71 to 72 of the agenda pack. Councillor Taylor, would you like to move the motion, please? You have 5 minutes to present the motion and say anything you wish about it. Your next opportunity to speak will then be when summing up.
Thank you, Chair. Now, as we all know, Fenland is a rural area, and many of the businesses within this area rely on the agricultural and horticultural sectors. But not just farmers, but haulage companies, equipment suppliers, right the way through the range to small corner shops that all stock produce. So obviously Fenland District Council wants to support local businesses to thrive within their area. And the council recognises that the agricultural and horticultural sectors are a major part of our rural economy. So Fenland District Council will continue to support all businesses within its area and is especially aware of the extra pressures facing agricultural businesses following recent changes in national government policies. And if I may add that obviously there's a potential new policy brought in last week where the delightful PM has decided to do a deal with the EU on the fishing rights for the UK. Now, obviously, that doesn't affect us in here as such. We've not got no commercial fishermen within Fenland, but we've got one hell of a lot of fish and chip shops. Now, should we lose a lot of those because the fish isn't available or the fish is too expensive, we're obviously looking then at more people becoming unemployed and potentially affecting council tax, which will affect us as a council in a big way. So diversification is an established route for agricultural businesses to achieve greater sustainability. And one common method used is to establish a farm shop to sell locally grown farm produce directly to the public. There is a new national directory being put together for farmers who wish to sell directly to the public via farm shops. And I'm pleased to say that is now live via a new app which has been put together this weekend. The farm shops often require planning permission, and it is so tight-knit of what requires it and what doesn't. And to try and simplify it, if I have 5 people a week come down to farm for a sack of potatoes, we should need planning permission for that. If 3 people come down per week, we don't. So it's a very, very fine line of what requires planning and what doesn't to actually. Now, to put a planning application in, it's going to take months for it to go through the system. And what we don't want is, at the moment, we're getting hammered left, right and centre from the general public. They're coming, they're buying direct from farm. Since all these things with Bovar and all that going on, we're getting absolutely obliterated. So if we put a planning application in for a farm shop, if that takes a year to go through the system properly, are people still going to be coming to us in a year's time, or is it going to be a lot like COVID was, and they backtrack back to the supermarkets when COVID has sort of quietened down a bit? This could be the same. There are so many issues at the minute regarding various things within the industry. We've got a lot of public support. So, Fenland District Council resolves to write to Baroness Taylor, Minister at the Department for Housing, Communities and Local Government, urging her to ensure that any future changes made to the MPFF help agricultural businesses to diversify by eliminating any obstacles that farms face when seeking to open a farm shop or outlet. Fenland District Council will soon be agreeing its local draft plan. Council asks that specific consideration is given to include provisions within the local draft plan which will make it easier for planning applications for farm shops to be approved, as well as other policies to support farmers and food production. Fenland District Council also asks that the portfolio holder for planning to keep herself up to speed in relation to any specific planning applications for farm shops and outlets. So, and that is the motion, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Foyce-Beard? Thank you. You can reserve the right to speak at the end of the debate or at the time of seconding the motion. Do you wish to speak now?
No, I'll reserve, thank you.
Thank you. The item is open for discussion and members are reminded that they are each able to speak once. Would anybody like to start the debate, please? Councillor Tierney.
Just very quickly, I'm in support of this. I don't normally like motions that begin with writing to the Secretary of State because I just don't think they care what we say, regardless of which party's in power, but particularly at the moment. But I like anything that supports our farmers. It's important that we are clear that we support agriculture and our farmers in every respect because they need that at the moment. They need to hear that people support them, and I'm going to be voting for it because I do. Thank you.
Councillor Summers, please.
I think vagueness of motions has already been mentioned today. For me, this motion is too vague. It fails to clarify what the perceived obstacles to it are in any material sense, and it fails to provide the solutions to those obstacles. I love a farm shop. I absolutely support farm shops, but there needs to be regulation around how they appear. They can't just appear anywhere and everywhere, and that's why I don't support this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Laws, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll support this motion without question. If I can assist my fellow member over there, there is huge amount of regulation around farm shops. It has to go through a proper planning procedure, as with any development. And there's no fast tracking a farm shop, unfortunately, at the moment, because if we fast tracked a farm shop, we'd be fast tracking 200 houses. So therefore, we have to comply with the process, the rules, the regulations. And also, my understanding with farm shops, it comes under environmental health as well. It's not just planning. Also, there has to be consideration given to highways, the location of the property, and easy access and traffic movement. So this is really no different to how you would handle a genuine planning application for housing development or other structures. But happily, I will support this motion. And what I would also say is, as we are working with the emerging local plan, totally we want to support business coming into Fenland. And obviously this is one aspect that we are looking at also, that we want to obviously enhance and improve our agricultural system. So thank you, Councillor Taylor, bring it forward.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak on this motion? Councillor Nawaz.
Thank you, Chair. I'm surprised that the farmers aren't already able to have their own shops, frankly. You can open up a corner shop at 5-minute notice. You can sell alcohol. You can sell lots of drugs which are not particularly healthy. Corner shops, yes, but why do we not allow the farm shops with healthy food stuff, particularly when the farmers are hard squeezed by big retailers, and now with the inheritance tax on top? I think we should try to facilitate the farmers, not to put up any obstructions in their way. I acknowledge there are rules, Councillor, you quite rightly said, there are lots of rules and regulations that govern the setting up of farm shops. So, I mean, I fully support this motion, and I think in this area, which is predominantly rural area with lots of farms, we are supposed to be representing everybody's interests, and I would fully support this. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak on this? Councillor Barber, please.
I'd just like to say that I do fully support this motion. I just wonder how we have little stalls on the side of the road selling strawberries in summer and things like that. I'm sure they don't have planning permission. I understand that it's needed, but sometimes people just pitch up and go. I think we need to support our farmers completely in whatever they do, as you'll see in the next motion. But, we need to get behind the farmers because they're suffering at the minute, and we need to help them because we're in a farming community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clark, please.
I don't know whether we're over-promising and under-delivering here. I take note of the planning portfolio holder who is telling me that this is all going to come under the national planning framework and a planning application will have to go through the normal process. And we cannot make any decisions in this council to circumnavigate that. I can support it, but we can't overpromise and underdeliver.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak on this motion? Councillor Hicks, please.
Yes, I completely agree with my colleague here. Whatever we do here, however we vote for this motion, it's not going to make a damn bit of difference to our decision making because of our planning, because of the national framework. So it's a bit of a pointless motion, to be fair.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Hoy, please.
Yeah, no, I'm not trying to speak on everything, but just people to keep saying things that wind me up today, and I can't help myself. So a couple of bits. The thing that Councillor Noel said, and I know people laugh, and he was like, you can just put up a corner shop. I think he wasn't actually being literal. I think he was being figurative in the sense that actually, if something's already got planned for a shop and you want to open a corner shop, it's really easy. Because if you want to open a farm shop, if you're a farmer and you want to open and sell your goods, it is difficult, and you do have to go through these barriers. And we do keep saying about healthy eating and people living longer and doing X, Y, Z thing, and then we don't put these easy mechanisms in place. And the point about it being a pointless motion, yeah, I mean, the letter writing thing is annoying, but we have this at county council. Literally, the administration there will write a letter to whoever's listening to, you know, make the world change, the weather, or whatever they, you know, is their little pet project for the week, and we will have to sit there and listen to 4 hours of them talking about how this letter is going to change the world. I don't think necessarily this letter will change the world. Personally, I think it's going to probably go to a minister's desk and they're going to ignore it, or maybe give us, at best, a stock written response from the civil service. However, we have to try, because what are we going to do? Just sit here and just say, oh, okay, well, it's not our problem, can't do anything about it, so let's just leave it. We actually have to try and make an effort sometimes.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Patrick, please.
I'd just be interested to know how many farm shop applications we've had with independent and how many have been accepted or rejected.
Thank you. Councillor Imafidon, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to speak in support of this motion. I think our farmers are being squeezed enough, and I think there's enough restrictions in their way. I do agree that planning rules have to be followed. Can't just have shops everywhere. And I think, particularly in this climate we're in, we've seen the protests in London, we've seen protests everywhere, where farmers are struggling, and we've seen farmers being forced to sell their land to solar panel farms. So anything we can do to support our farmers, I am in support of. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. In which case, Councillor Foyce-Beard, would you like to exercise your right to speak?
No, thank you. I think everything's been said. Thanks.
Thank you. We will proceed. Councillor Taylor, would you like to sum up, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep it brief. Thank you very much, folks, for supporting this. Yes, our industry is in dire trouble at the moment, but we will survive. We're going to fight. We've got a lot of fight on, and there's a lot of fight in us, and we're not backing down for anything. The industry will be here much after the Labour government aren't. So, yeah, we've got a lot of things to do. Farm shops is one thing. So the new app is up and live as from last night now, where people can just tap on the app and find out their local suppliers or their local farm that's prepared to sell direct to public. So the planning applications for farm shops is just another step, but it's a step that can be sort of verified and missed, where things are going out direct to the public straight from farm, where obviously there is no regulations required. So thank you very much for those that want to support the motion. It means a lot, and the industry is here to stay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. We'll now move to the vote. Can you keep your hands raised so that member services can count us accurately, please? So, all those in favour? Thank you, members. All those against? Thank you. Any abstentions, please? I'll now ask member services to announce the outcome of the vote. The result is 35 for, 2 against the motion, so the motion is carried. Item 10 is a motion from Councillor Barber, which appears at pages 73 to 74 of the agenda pack. Councillor Barber, would you like to move the motion, please? You have 5 minutes to present the motion and say anything you wish about it. Your next opportunity to speak will be when summing up. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Finland is currently faced with the threat of multiple national significant infrastructure projects, NSIPs, which, if granted, would remove huge swathes of land from crop production. Whilst these projects are described as temporary in nature, solar farms with their 40-year presence are a significant part of anyone's lifetime. Pylons have a lifetime of approximately 80 years, but their presence is likely to be indefinite, along with that of associated substations. Agricultural land in Finland is classified as BMV, best and most versatile land in the country, something that should not be understated. Whilst delivering clean energy may be crucial to supporting the UK's net zero target, there is a very real threat to the future of our farms and home grown produce. This concerns me greatly, as it does many residents who have expressed their concerns to me. The cost of importing and replacing the solar panels themselves, which is required every 15 to 20 years. Sorry, Mr. Page. Half of all Grade 1 land in England is found in the Fens. We produce 22% of England's crop output and 35% of its vegetable production, according to the UK Food Security Report. The Fens is the breadbasket of the country, with wheat, barley, sugar beet and peas, and more, all grown here. If we are forced to import increasing amounts of food and crops to support ourselves as a nation, we risk becoming victims of price dictatorship and increasing supply issues. Already 40% of our food is imported. DEFRA say, and I quote, "We aim to grow a green economy and sustain thriving communities. We also support our world-leading farming and fishing industries," unquote. Is taking so much of our BMV land for NSIPs really keeping to this aim? Whilst overall we may support the concept of green energy, this should not be at the cost of our future food security. We have an ever-increasing population. If our farmland stocks are depleted, and any green energy savings would be offset by the carbon footprint of importing additional food for our nation, as well as the cost of importing and replacing the solar panels themselves, which is required every 15 to 20 years. Applications under 50 megawatts generation are decided by us as the local planning authority. An application in my ward is 49.9 megawatts, just under the NSIP threshold, but will still cover 347 acres of our precious BMV land. This is not about NIMBYism, it's about the impact it would have on us, not only as a district, but also as a country. Removing ginormous swathes of our most productive agricultural land and covering it in solar panels, pylons, wind turbines, battery storage and substations, at the expense of our nation's food security, is, in my opinion, short-sighted, ruthless and irresponsible. We as a community are custodians of Finland. We need to ensure that we do all we can within our power to protect and improve our district for past, present and future residents. And it's the government's responsibility to listen to local communities who know their area and its value, and who are warning Whitehall of the repercussions if these proposals are not taken seriously. It's crucial that Finland District Council, as a local authority, present a united front to make our stance on NSIPs clear to the Labour government, who seem to be holding us hostage on the generation of clean energy at, it would seem, any cost, and who appear to be hell-bent on destroying our countryside, our beautiful, unique Fenland landscape, our residents' lifestyle, physical and mental health, our infrastructure, our wildlife, our economy, our employment. About 80,000 jobs in Finland are directly linked to the agri-food chain, our heritage and our nation's food security. Our neighbouring district council, South Holland, has recently passed a similar motion unanimously. I would hope that this council can do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Taylor. You can reserve the right to speak at the end of the debate or at the time of seconding the motion. Do you wish to speak now?
I'll reserve, Chair, please.
Thank you. The item is now open for discussion and members are reminded that they are able to speak just once on it. So can I have someone to start off the debate, please? Councillor Tierney.
Always happy to start off the debate, Chair. Yes, let's talk about it. It's perhaps quite a heavy motion for Christmas, but what better time to think about things that are serious? Governments, to my mind, have completely gone mad. And I know that the Labour government was mentioned, but I'm ashamed to say that the Conservative Party before them, just as mad, perhaps not just as mad, but close to being as mad. And the reason they're mad is because the only thing that seems to matter to them is controlling the weather, is this nebulous threat of climate change. And it seems to throw everything else out. Now, I don't want to get into the debate about climate change at the moment. We all have our own views on the level of that. But I do want to say that food security is absolutely vital. And this is a choice because there are lots of forms of energy. But solar and wind, the two that everybody seems to love at the moment, we don't properly cost what they cost us. We don't think about the concrete that needs to be laid, the turbines, the areas of land that are eaten up by solar panels, the difficulty of doing battery storage in the long term, the costs of subsidies, which are so well hidden so as to make these forms of energy seem inexpensive and affordable, when in fact they are not. The best form of energy you can use is the old-fashioned forms, but we are worried about the consequences of using them. That's fine. But let's not starve ourselves and our future generations by making stupid decisions now. As has been correctly said, Finland is a fantastic farming area, an agricultural area. We've got some of the best land in the country. We provide a lot of the food for the country. Why on earth would you destroy that to build some useless solar panels? It is so stupid, and I absolutely agree with this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak on the motion? Sorry, who was it? Yeah. Councillor Carney and then Councillor Gersner, please.
Councillor Summers.
I really couldn't add anything more to what Councillor Tierney just said. We are the breadbasket of the country. In fact, absolutely right. These solar farms and wind turbines need to be foisted on us whether we like it or not. And I take on point Councillor Barber's point about having the local population consulted on it and being listened to. I think the truth is, I think we all know this, they're not. You know, it doesn't look at the Seneca solar farm down near Fordham and on the Cam-Suffolk border. You know, the protest that the local people in that area put up, Suffolk County Council mounted a legal challenge against the government because it got passed back in July this year. And it's all because, I mean, I've admitted it to previous administration, but the point is that local people, local councils, no matter what they say, up above, they're going to have that whether you like it, come what may. So I wholeheartedly support this motion because only if it's a tiny wheel in a bigger mechanism, just to get that message driven home, we've got to feed the nation, we've got to have food. If anything, why don't government make it policies that any new industrial building with a large warehouse with a huge great roof on it have solar panels fitted to them, rather than acres and acres of grade 1, grade 2 fertile land. You know, there's hundreds, thousands of places where you can actually put solar panels on the roof. Do that rather than farmland. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you. Councillor Gersner and then Councillor Summers, please.
Thank you. I fully support Councillor Barber. I think it was a very good presentation. Unfortunately, we have our arms tied behind our back in planning terms. We have, in many years here, had to build on grade 1 agricultural land because of planning rules and regulations. It's an absolute travesty that we're having to build on good quality farmland. We know that the farmers suffer sometimes, and I've got a farmer near me whose farm was flooded and whose yield this year was only 50% of what he normally got, okay? And he's looking to sell the land to build on, okay? Because he'll make more money from it. But I fully support this motion. We should be feeding the country and ourselves long before building more wind turbines and more solar farms. We have enough, and as Councillor Turney said, there is a cost to this. The hidden cost is not what the government, all governments have told us, of cheap energy. The days of cheap energy have gone. Energy is only going one way, and that's upwards. Okay? And I fully support the motion, but I'm very sorry the Labour government at the moment has got a different agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Summers and then Councillor Miscandlin, please.
I'm not sure what the old ways that Councillor Tierney is referring to are. Hopefully not coal. I think, oh, you are? Well, I think nuclear is the only real answer, to be honest, but that's by the by. I think this motion is about preserving grade 1 agricultural land for food security, and that is of utmost importance. I think, as Councillor Tierney said, I'm not sure if anyone's listening, but we've got to try, so I fully support this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Miscandlin, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Some years ago, when I was Chairman of Planning here, we had an application for some wind turbines. So I did a quick calculation of how much land it was actually using. And with them growing wheat on that land, in 1 year, they would produce enough wheat to make over 1 million loaves of bread. So security of our farming land is absolute paramount, and we should protect it at all costs. And let the government, whoever's in power, don't care the colour of their badge, that the farmland in the Fenland area is paramount in feeding this country without importing it. Because you remember, every piece of food that comes in from abroad has a cost attached to it for transportation in the country where it comes from. And we don't know what their standards are in that country, but we know what our standards are in, as Councillor Taylor will tell you, they're pretty strict, and so they should be, because we're feeding a nation and trying to keep us all healthy. So I will be supporting this motion because I think it is paramount that we support the farmers and the grade 1 listed land that we grow a farm on.
Thank you. Councillor Gale and then Councillor Hicks, please, and then Councillor Patrick.
Thank you, Chair. I echo the thoughts of pretty much every person that's already spoke on this. Successive governments since the 1980s have completely failed to solve the energy crisis. We should have been building nuclear power stations everywhere. Unfortunately, that just hasn't happened. You know, that's Conservative and Labour governments. The one thing I would like to add to this, I totally agree with the motion. I just do want to point out that the reservoir is a national infrastructure project, and I believe that as a council, we have supported that. So I wonder if there might be an amendment to just mention that in this. Thank you.
Councillor Hicks and then Councillor Patrick, please.
Yes, first of all, I'd like to say I am going to support this motion, being very pro-farming orientated. But I don't know if any of the members here today saw a programme back a couple of days ago on solar panels on the television where they were growing crops underneath the solar panels and in the rows between, and they were getting better results. They were getting more tasty vegetables, higher in nutrients, everything. So it is possible to farm, and it has been done on various sites in this country already.
Thank you. Councillor Patrick, please.
Yes, I will support this motion. I do agree that our farmland needs to be protected. But the other thing I have is the concern about the rise of temperatures within the world. And if we don't do something on the energy front as well, and continue to burn fossil fuels and oil, we will eventually push the temperatures up so high that possibly our land will become infertile. So somewhere along the line there needs to be some sort of system, a way that we keep the land, but we need to produce clean energy in order to stop the temperature rise and the destruction of our lands.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak on Councillor Laws?
I'm not sure if it's deliberate, Chairman, or what. I'd just like to add, I support this motion. But also with the new emerging local plan, we're looking at building, we're looking at design, and we're looking at trying to persuade the developers that enter Fenland to actually look very carefully at putting solar panels on new developments and any buildings that come forward. So I think that's important to note. And going back to what's been said, solar panels, Councillor Hicks, that has gone on, in my knowledge, for over 35 years in Germany, as Alex is saying. Not only food production, but also animals, mainly sheep, actually. And this went back to a thing called the Stewart Report that I was quite involved with. So in answer to your question, yes, I'm going to support the motion, but also moving forward, we are looking to talk to developers. We can't demand, obviously, but obviously, again, these are going to be policies that maybe we can bring forward in our local plan. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak? Yep. Councillor Taylor, would you like to exercise your right to speak?
Thank you, Chair, of course. Now, it's pretty obvious I was going to sort of support this motion from day one. But just a quick comment to Councillor Laws's comment regarding developers. You know this is something I've been chasing hard for the last 5 years. And the answers have come back a lot of negativity on it because the power companies don't want solar panels on a lot of house roofs because they're not earning any money out of it. So that's something we really need to look at. But as for solar farms, we'll see the footage from last weekend where we had the country's largest solar farm. It was absolutely obliterated after old Darrow hit us, didn't it? It looked like 1,000 tractors had done a demolition derby in there and left nothing. And the company's answer, who owns this, was, well, they're not designed for that sort of weather conditions. Really. And then, I don't know whether you see it again, a wind turbine, where the whole fan came off in one go and went across the ground like a boomerang, it had gone. But when you talk to a proper meteorologist, and I'm not talking about one that's tied to the BBC or the Labour Party, I'm talking a proper meteorologist. You look at our weather circles, we're running on 20-year patterns-ish through the pattern of the jet stream. So we've got another 15, 16, 17 years to go within the weather situations we've got at the moment. And Miliband has chosen the most volatile weather times to put up these turbines and solar panels that don't fit for this weather. Right, okay. But a turbine, a 2 megawatt turbine, and that's one of the small ones, requires 260 tonnes of steel, and that requires 300 tonnes of iron ore and 170 tonnes of coking coal, which is mined, to produce the steel for the footings. That's not including the concrete, that's just the steel work. That's then transported to the manufacturers, then to site, and then the turbine's manufactured, and then that's transported to site. Now, if a turbine turned every second of its life, it would never produce as much power as it took to manufacture it. How is that green? Yeah, we're an island. We're surrounded by sea. The sea comes to us twice a day, it's called the tide. You could so simply produce power from the seawater at very minimal costs to what we've got now, and your farmland would be safe. But, as you say, this Labour government, they've obviously got, and the past Conservatives, I'm not disputing that, they was as bad. this needs a complete overhaul. It needs throwing out completely from scratch, saying, right, let's start again. We have got the ideal electricity supplier around us, and that is called seawater. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Barber, would you like to sum up, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to thank those who appreciated and agreed to the motion. Just a few extra bits. It's now suggested that up to 1 billion solar panels will be fitted across Britain now to hit net zero targets. Apparently, the wind turbine blades are not recyclable and have to be buried and go into landfill, something else to be thought about. I think it's important that we do something. I don't know what we can do, but there's somebody had the saying, if we do nothing, it's the wrong way around, isn't it? Evil will increase if men do nothing. Good men do nothing. So we have to do something. Not sure what it is, but thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barber. We will now move to the vote. Again, can you keep your hands raised while member services count you? All those in favour? No. The motion, thank you. The motion has been carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 11. The next item on the agenda is the Treasury Management Strategy Statement, an annual investment strategy mid-year review for 2024-25, which appears at pages 75 to 84 of the agenda pack. I now call upon Councillor Bowden to present this report.
Thank you, Chairman. I won't talk for too long about Treasury management, although it deserves as much time as we spent talking about the flag. Treasury management is about the utilisation of our financial assets and how well we do. And within the report, it's quite notable that it looks as though we're going to come very close in predicting accurately what the returns are that we're going to have from our property fund and from our cash holdings. Admittedly, it's out in one direction in one and in another direction in another, but add the two together and you're almost exactly there, which is very good. Within the report, there were some other things which were interesting. The first is that we are still not in a position where we are requiring borrowing. That surprises me, and it shows how much hard work has been put in by officers and by members, but particularly by officers, to ensure that we get funding for capital projects from elsewhere and that we maximise the returns that we get from the disposals of our capital items. The paper then goes on to mention that we may be in a position, at some stage, we're getting close to the position where we can commute the outstanding long-term loans that we've got, which have caused us to be outside the prudential indicators for so many years. And that's just a mathematical calculation about whether paying off an outstanding loan is less expensive than continuing to pay it over the remaining term of the loan. But then within the report, we have comments about the economic outlook and how things look for the future. And I have to say that this report is dated fairly rapidly, only in a matter of weeks, because the economic outlook, national economic outlook, probably is not as good as people might have anticipated only a few months ago. The £40 billion tax grab in the budget has had a number of effects which are beginning to show through, as we see in the last 2 months' worth of growth or lack of growth in the economy. And I fear that the fairly positive prognosis that we had in this report about the direction of travel of interest rates may not turn out to be true now. I still expect the first change in interest rates to be a further reduction. I fear we may only get one, and then we may start seeing interest rates going up inflation going up and all of the difficulties that that entails. Now, so long as we are receiving more money in terms of the amount of cash that we're investing than we are paying in variable interest, that's not a bad thing for us, but it's a very bad thing for the economy. And the problem that we've got is that when, but I say when rather than if, but when we do need to start borrowing again, whether that be for housing for, to do with the homelessness issue, or whether it be to do with leisure centres or whatever, but when we need to start borrowing again, the problem is that the interest rates that we may face may be rather higher than we currently anticipate, which will have a significant effect of the overall cost of those various projects. So the report is as it is. It's a good report for the current year, and I fear it is maybe slightly optimistic now about what we face in the years to come. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Nawaz, thank you. Would you like to exercise your right to speak now, or reserve your right to do so at the conclusion of the debate?
I reserve my right to the end, please.
The item is open for debate. Who would like to start this one, please? Okay.
Councillor Christie.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Nawaz, back to you then.
Thank you. I thought that was rather an emotional reaction, perhaps. Thank you very much. I mean, this report, it's not easy to compile these reports, particularly in the days of so much uncertainty. And I think one must thank the officers concerned, as well as the elected members and leader of the council for bringing together this complex report. And I quite agree that given the uncertainties are such, that we have had 2 successive months of shrinking economy in September and October. And it is quite likely that the 4th quarter of this year would show a contraction in GDP. And that injects even more uncertainty in that the government may well start to, ironically somewhat perhaps, to reduce the rates, the interest rates, and then be forced to put them back up again. Now that may mess up the leader's figures somewhat, as he has acknowledged earlier, and not to mention the fact that the 40 billion pounds of tax grab by the government has meant that a range of companies have pronounced publicly that they will not be investing much money, nor be taking on many more employees, particularly in view of the increases in national insurance contributions. So I think a report well done in difficult circumstances, and I would commend that to this council. And once again, thank you to the officers and to the leader.
Thank you. Councillor Bowden, would you like to sum up, please? No. Okay, thank you. Members, the recommendation is at page 75 of the agenda pack and is for full council to note the report. Is that duly noted? Yeah. Thank you. Agenda item 12. Agenda item 12 is the Economic Growth Strategic Refresh 2025 to 2028 and appears at pages 85 to 130 of the agenda pack. I now call upon Councillor Bowden to present the report.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, we all know that Fenland is a great place to live, work and visit, and that there are major opportunities for economic growth. We also know that along with our partners, such as the Combined Authority, we have an important role to play in helping to ensure that the district remains a great place. This second strategic refresh updates the existing economic development strategy, follows on from the first strategic refresh, and sets out how the Council will play its role over the next 3 years. Ultimately, economic growth isn't determined by the Council, it's determined by local businesses. And the most important role that the Council can undertake is to ensure that the right support is available to entrepreneurs, to owners, and to managers when making decisions about how and when to grow, about starting a business, and why a business should start in Finland. In this second refresh, you'll find several examples of how our economic growth team have supported our local businesses, and I won't quote from the refresh because you've all read the quotes. And so what's really important here is, with this second refresh, is that we continue to meet with relevant decision makers and find out exactly what help they need in the real private economy out there, and what information they may need, and anything else that we can do to give assistance to them. So you'll find that this second refresh continues the focus on measurable action and demonstrating that Finland is truly open for all businesses. At its meeting on the 15th of November, Cabinet did consider this, and it recommended this Economic Growth Strategic Refresh 25-28 for approval by full Council, and I would recommend that to you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Scanlon, would you like to exercise your right to speak now, or reserve your right to do so at the conclusion of the debate? Thank you. The item is open for debate. Councillor Count.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Bowden, for bringing this forward, putting it in front of us today. I'd like to congratulate you and all the officers that have helped to put this together. It's been done in partnership with the combined authority to enable an overall growth strategy, and it's very important that Finland manages to put its marker down and that we are open for business as you described it. I think it's a good piece of work. I think that the examples that are used to actually flesh out the detail shows exactly how much we can help a business, whereas in some areas of government you actually get in the way of local businesses, but we've got some great examples there of where we're able to add value. The one area that I'd want to draw particular relevance to is the section that talks about available service land and infrastructure. There are some great things happening locally, potential things happening locally. One of the major projects that people either like or don't like is the Friends Reservoir, but the two that I want to concentrate on the most here are the area around the Chatteris Stainless Metal Craft and the one over at Whittlesea, which is the possibility of the Peterborough Science and Technology Park. Because what separates them for me, and are great examples of us landing high productivity businesses in this area and looking for more of that. And it's actually the productivity that we get in an area that changes the social and economic outcomes for our area. We have had too many years where the people from this area have gone to universities elsewhere and gone on to better jobs elsewhere, and we've had a brain drain, which means that the economic material that we're left with in the Fens has been left behind, which has had social outcomes. If we can make the most out of areas such as these and actually draw those high value jobs into the area with high productivity and start keeping some of the people that are local to us with the best outcomes in the world, it will actually make a real difference. So I love the fact that these have been put down, there's a marker down there. I'd like us to go further. When it says about service land and that, I've seen past examples about businesses making a decision. Businesses don't tend to lay out a strategy, yeah, maybe some giant ones do, and lay out a strategy and say, we're going to go for 8% growth this year and this is how we're going to achieve it. Businesses set out budgets that way, but they actually react very fast to market conditions. And when a business is expanding, they cannot afford to wait for a planning system and a and all this to come along and have a great big survey. How many great crested newts are there in the area that will delay things with an archaeological dig for 3 years? They actually want to know, when they want a larger plant, how quickly it can be delivered if there isn't one available. And I've seen examples in the past where enterprise parks have gone out there and they've said, we will do all the necessary background work for you. We will do the planning. We will say that when you arrive, this is cleared on all these fronts, and we have paid for that. But when you come along for that speed, we want you to pay us back. Now, that costs a lot of upfront money, but I'd love to see us put a package in front of the CPCA and say, this is what we need to really change the area and to bring some growth, some high productivity growth into Finland, and say, you pay for it because your aims are the same as our aims are, to reduce inequalities in the area. And this is one way we could go about it. And we've got just two examples of great sites for that. So I commend this, and I hope that people will be able to take those ideas and other ideas that come forward and actually use them to actually deliver higher and better productivity growth for this area. And thank you very much for bringing this here.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak? Councillor Miscandon, would you like to exercise your reserved right to speak?
Thank you, Chairman. I totally agree with what Councillor Counts just said. The two major projects in the Fens at the moment are the reservoir, which I fully support, and the technical and science park. The unfortunate bit about that is they've got to call it the Peterborough one, which we can probably get over that in the future sometime. But it's many, many millions of pounds is going to be spent on that. And that's not prime agricultural land being robbed. It's a waste area, for want of a better term. But it will be, if it comes to fruition totally, a very, very exciting project, and will put Finland on the map for being a science and technology centre. And I wish the developers of it all the best to get that coming forward. And I totally agree with the economic strategy for it.
Thank you. Councillor Bowden, would you like to sum up?
No need, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you. The recommendation is at page 86 of the report and is for full council to consider and approve the Economic Growth Strategic Refresh 2025-28. Is that agreed? Yeah. Thank you. Item 13 is a report in relation to a draft Gambling Act Statement of Principles for 2025 to 2028, which can be found at pages 131 to 184 of the agenda pack. I now call upon Councillor Oliver, as Chairman of Licensing Committee, to present the report.
Thank you, Chairman. Our current statement expires on the 30th of January 2025. The Gambling Act 2005 requires the Council to renew our Statement of Principles. The report sets out in the recommendation from the Licensing Committee, who determined to approve the draft policy for the period of 2025-2028. Consultation took place and the Licensing Committee considered the responses from the contribution. The link to that is in the report. Licensing Committee members discussed and reviewed responses, all of which were in favour of the draft policy being approved. The proposed draft policy on Licensing Committee's recommendation is set out in Appendix A as a recommendation for the approval.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Humphrey. Would you like to exercise your right to speak now or reserve your right to do so at the conclusion of the debate? Thank you. The item is open for debate. Councillor Humphrey, would you like to exercise your reserved right? Thank you. Councillor Oliver, would you like to sum up?
I think I've said everything I need to.
Thank you. The recommendation is at page 131 of the report and is for full council to consider the recommendation by the Licensing Committee for approval of the Draft Gambling Act Statement of Principles policy for 2025 to 2028. Is that agreed? Thank you. That concludes this afternoon's meeting. I'd like to thank you for your attendance And may I remind you that the next ordinary meeting of full council will take place on Monday, the 24th of February 2025 at 4 p.m. Have a lovely Christmas and a very happy New Year to you all. Thank you.